All right, all right, all right. Welcome, all my passionate plant people and garden enthusiasts to the Sunday edition of the Let's Get Growing show. Welcome, everybody. Oh. Turn that down. I missed that part of it. Anyways, I'm working on that intro. Anyways, hey, welcome everyone to the Sunday edition again here on the Let's Get Growing show. I'm Enoch, and we're coming to you live from the Urban Gardener channel. And just kind of having a fun Sunday again this week here on the Sunday edition of the Let's Get Growing show. So glad to have you all here joining with me today. What we're going to kind of do is run somewhat of what I tried as an experiment a couple of weeks ago, and ended up turning out to be just such a really great success. And I really encourage all of you, if you haven't had a chance to go back to a couple weeks ago, we had Jay on our show for I did a kind of basically just threw out the guest link, and Jay volunteered and came in and joined with us for a fun conversation here on the channel. So I thought maybe I'd do something like that again. Maybe I'll throw it out there. We'll see what happens here just a little bit later in the show, and see if maybe we can get somebody to join in with us today for a fun conversation. I think maybe, it's kind of fun maybe to do something like this every now and then too. And I was wondering, and I kind of threw it out in a couple of other places, so I don't know what it's going to really do, but I'd like to find places or whatever, maybe some live streams and stuff where there's a lot of other like smaller channels, people who are just, out there doing things and stuff. And then maybe have like a Sunday or something where we do this sort of thing, and maybe invite smaller channels just to come on and have like 10-15 minutes or so to kind of introduce themselves, say hi, and just kind of have a conversation. I don't know. I thought it was kind of a fun idea originally. And then I kind of, as we had that conversation with Jay a couple weeks ago, it was really, it really turned out really well. So I thought maybe let's give it another try and see what happens. Maybe it'll go somewhere or something like that. But, that's kind of the fun thing about having a show like this, is we can kind of experiment around with a few different things. So definitely go and check out that one from a couple weeks ago with Jay. There she is, joining with us from Huron County, Midwestern Ontario, Canada. Yeah, right on. Jay, our facilitator, does so much for us in the comment section there. It was such a great conversation to get to meet her and to talk about, what it is that drives her to do the things that she does for all of us on our channels during our live streams, because really what she does is a lot of really good work. I mean, it is really like, that's extra and far beyond what, a moderator, as we say, is a moderator's kind of that, hall person or whatever, is they're out keeping an eye on everything and making sure that things are going all right. And Jay goes far beyond that. And I loved her explanation of facilitator and all of that too. So you're going to love that conversation. You want to go back and check that out as well too. Let's see here. We got Rick joining us down from Australia. Good to see you. All right. Excellent. And so we got Connie there as well too. Hi, Connie. Great to have you here. And again too, this is really kind of the result of what it's like to kind of take a couple of weeks break from doing a live show. And really, ultimately, doing a live show like I do, there's a lot of work in getting guests and booking, and there's a lot that has to go. And sometimes I'm switching and we're moving and things have to happen and things are kind of going on the fly. Like right now, I've got a few emails out. I'm working on a couple of things. In fact, I just found out this morning who is going to be our next week's guest. So we're just kind of really trying to get certain things back on track is what I'm trying to do. And we had ourselves right in a really good flow. I had some, had some great things set up. So So this is kind of the result of that. Is I want to get set up with these alternate Sundays other than our second and our third Sunday, to do some roundtables and to get some other discussions going on, similar to what we did back with Tom Spellman and Charles Malky. We did that really cool growing trees, backyard horticulture, and those sort of things that we were talking about there. And, you know, kind of something that kind of started out of the idea of the conversations I was having with my friends Chris and Kang, who we have regular conversations with too. They'll be coming back up here soon, hopefully in a few weeks as well too. But that's something I'm hopefully hoping to get everything really going and rolling when it comes to Sundays and all of that sort of thing as well too. So lots and lots of things, still just trying to get back on track since the birth of my granddaughter, you know. And to me, I know I'd like to make sure that we're really doing in bringing new guests and having all that sort of thing for the show each week. I love bringing, you know, having hopefully new faces, some return faces from last year, those sort of things, all sorts of things, but guests and conversations each and every week. And I kind of set myself up didn't really, I mean, it's my granddaughter, you know what I mean? But I took extra time, and I've been kind of a little slacking on getting back on track with doing certain things, because I'm telling you, my granddaughter's amazing. And when it's your first grandkid and you're new to this experience, as my daughter is new to this experience of being a mother and all that, so we're all just kind of having fun and feeling this out together and everything as a family. And it's just really just been a really great experience. And so I can't really kind of take away from that and say, you know, I really kind of regret some of the things that, you know, have happened as far as getting things back on track for the show. So I'm kind of in this regret. I'm sorry, everybody, ultimately, but when it comes down to it, I am enjoying getting to experience and have fun with my grandbaby and all that sort of stuff. And I don't, you know what, I might have, and if I work here as I'm talking and we're doing things on the show here, Connie asked a really great question here, because I love all of your questions. Keep them coming. If you got more questions too, it is a great way to keep this conversation on a Sunday like this going too, is jumping in and throwing out questions and everything too. And Connie asks, do we have any new grandbaby pictures? I've got a few that I shared recently on my Facebook. And if I can pull those off and get them on here, maybe a little bit later in the show, I'll come back around to it, and maybe I'll show you some of those if I can get that done. Try not to be too distracted while I'm running the show and all of that, but Jay, grandbaby. I know, Layla is beautiful. She's amazing. I was just there yesterday and just, you know, getting to see her. And, you know, it's now kind of getting that phase. We're a little over a month in, you know, and you can see mom and dad are a little, you know, they're enjoying the process, but they're starting to also kind of like, oh, wow, wait a minute, we do have a baby now. It's really fun, it's enjoyable and all of that, but then the real experience really hits you. And you know, and again too, that's another real part of the fun of being a grandparent, though, is that I remember that experience myself when I had my daughter, and it was just a crazy new fun experience, you know. And it's very much the same now as a grandfather, except for I don't have to have the baby with me all the time. I'm not the one who's, you know, kind of lacking on sleep and all of that sort of stuff. So I get to kind of enjoy those things without all that other stuff. And it is a part of that experience as being a grandfather, though, too, is to watch your children become parents and see them go through that sort of stuff and experience that as well, too. You know what I mean? Even though it's tough on them with the lack of sleep, or the, you know, oh my gosh, that's what she does, she cries, you know, or what. It's just, it's not necessarily completely funny when it comes down to it, but it's an enlightening and fun experience for them and us as grandparents, because you know, they're going to enjoy and look back at all of this sort of stuff they're going through now and just really cherish it the rest of their lives. And we all are, really. But you know, it is that kind kind of fun part of it too, as well, to watch my daughter become a mom, and Layla's father, you know, doing and being parents and everything too. So that's just really, really great, you know. So there's lots of great things about being a grandfather, but yeah. Again, though, I could talk about that all day though too, as well though. But like Jay says though too, here, questions are welcome. Bring them, bring them, bring them. But though, like she says, not all necessarily all questions will be answered or featured in the live interview or answered in the chats. And we definitely thank you for all of your contributions. And, you know, really, I'm going to, you know, do my best when it's just kind of like me here one-on-one, for sure. We'll probably most likely get to everything. But there are times like when we have guests and things like that, where we do kind of, you know, we have a conversation going on, and maybe certain things are being talked about, and a question comes up and it's not quite on the same subject as what we're talking about. So some of those things kind of get moved on, or maybe I'll try to fit them on a little bit later in the conversation, or certain things and other things like that. So there are some times when we can't quite fit some things in for questions and all that, but I do try my best to get everything in as best that I possibly can. We did have one question though from one viewer yesterday that I want to kind of talk about a little bit, that I'm going to bring back from yesterday's show into this show though too, because again, I do like to try to answer, or at least acknowledge, most questions that are being asked. Again too, some questions might be completely off of the subject of what we're talking about, and I'll hold that off. And I try maybe, and that's what I was trying to do with this one, was kind of hold off till the end of the show, and then I could address and talk to any of those leftover questions. But we kind of ran again. I was in this, most likely the case on most shows though too, is I'm running kind of late as we're heading to the end of the show, and I've got the guests and everything and hanging on and all of that. So I'm just kind of, and I forgot one of them, and I wanted to do that, and I thought it'd be a great thing that we can talk about as kind of a subject leading up to, again, what I'll remind everybody now, if you didn't hear, if you're joining us right now and didn't hear just a little bit ago, we are doing kind of, I'm going to do kind of like an open house thing, where I'm going to share with everybody the link for this show. And that's for anybody, because this works for anyone. You got your computer there. You know, you just click that link. It'll ask your computer for permission to use your camera and your audio, and that is all you need. You will show up basically on my end, in my side of all of this program, and I'll see you there, and I'll work in and bring you in, and we can have a fun little conversation for a few minutes. What would be nice though is a lot of people got shy last time, and we ended up talking with Jay for most of the show, which was really great and a great conversation. And we had fun with that conversation. But what I would really like to see is some of our other fun viewers on the channel here to just jump in and say hi and introduce yourself. We're a small community. You know what I mean? We're not that big of a community. So, you know, we all get to hang out with each other, talk with each other each weekend and all that. So I thought maybe it kind of be fun just to kind of let folks be able to jump on here and say hi and introduce themselves, as, you know, so we can see, you know, we all see each other's names and all that sort of stuff, and just be able to say hi and whatnot. I won't hold you on too long, especially if we do have others. I'll try to work them in, but you know, maybe, you know, if we don't get anybody else, if everybody's being shy, you know, that sort of thing. But I would suggest everybody not to be too shy, because we're a small enough community where we don't have to worry about being shy. I mean, everybody can feel welcome here and comfortable talking with everybody. We keep a great community here. That's one of the great things about having like Adam and Jay doing the work in the chat and all of that, keeping things well grounded for us. And again, too, we're a small enough community to get along enough to have a conversation. So all of you here who are watching now, I encourage you to jump onto that link when I put it up here in just a little bit. Okay. I mean, I am going to wait just one more minute. We'll take a break, and then I'm going to come back. I'm going to talk about what I'm going to talk about today, and then we'll move on into that as we move on to the later part of the show. Okay, so that's what we're going to do for today, and hopefully I'm going to find a moment here to grab some pictures of the grandbaby and be able to share with you too. I just should have thought of this before we got started. I mean, really. So that's what I'm going to do here is as we're kind of doing too. I got to kind of work behind the scenes on the behind the program as we're doing the show here in order to make that happen. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining with us. Looks like let's see here. I want to make sure we're not missing everybody. I know we mentioned Rick here was there, and Connie had the question. Oh, Jersey Girl. Hey. Hi, friends. Adam's with us here. And I know someone was thinking about coming and joining with us and talking on the show, because I did notice on Facebook, someone posted a post. I just saw her just a little bit before I started the show. So we might have at least one person I know, but I hope the rest of you out there are thinking about it as well. Don't be shy. Rick says they'd be happy parents. Yes, they are very happy parents. They're great kids, and just it's so awesome to watch them, learning and figuring this whole thing out, and it's the typical young parents, that every little thing is a wonder and a worry and all that sort of stuff. And so there's a little talking down from ledges, we have to do as grandparents and stuff. And but it's a part of the experience, and she's going to look back on it and just cherish all of it too. So let's see. Jersey Girl says, what's this? My first grandbaby will be here in October. We had my daughter's baby shower last Sunday. No way. Yeah, see, there's a good thing. You need to come on and talk about that. That would be fun, Jersey Girl. You're going to be a grandparent too? What? First grandparent? See? Well. All right. How to garden. How you doing? So like I said, you can come on and say hi here in just a little bit. So stick around on the show. I'm going to share the link. So if you got a channel or you got anything you like to promote, or you just want to come and say hi to the community, because like I said, we're all friends here. We're a nice small community. So just come on and say hi. Let's see. Connie Davison says, I found a new use for an old napkin holder. I've put it over my snake plant and it holds it up from falling over. Yeah, if you got some issues or you got a weak one or something's happening there, yeah. It's good. We're always looking for something to kind of prop up. I've got several props on different plants around here too as well, and we're always looking for something. And it's interesting to see the sort of things we figure out and use for things in our plants or gardens even too. Our good friend Wayne Elgin shares on our Facebook group. In fact, this is a good moment for me to kind of tell everybody right now too. Get right down in the description below to our link for our Facebook group, the Let's Get Growing Facebook group. Our good friend Wayne Elgin shares a ton of stuff over there. He's always sharing great stuff out of his garden. You're going to want to check out some of the things he's got. But he's always finding things on the side of the road or different just odds and ends of stuff to use in the garden for all sorts of stuff, whether it's kind of vertical trellises or plant props or all of that sort of stuff. It's just amazing some of the creative things that we're able to find in our garden. Wayne does a lot of that stuff and shares a lot of that too, and grows just a ton of stuff. It's amazing. I can't even believe I've been to Wayne's house. I've been to his gardens a couple of times, and I just can't believe the amount of stuff that he grows out of his small space garden. So Wayne is definitely a major testament to the fact that you could take really small yard spaces and produce a ton of food for yourself throughout the year. I'm telling you, it's so possible. I love what he does there too. You'll want to go check that out on our Facebook group there for sure. Definitely. Let's see here. Jay says too, I do a lot of upcycling, reuse of many things, including old items being used for gardening purposes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's great to reuse and repurpose things and find uses for those sort of things. I try, in my spaces to use what I can for things. I've got a few things I'm using for props and stuff like that as well too. I build a lot of stuff though too, is out of just basic things too, to show people how easy it is also to just build and put things together if you're not of a creative mind to grab and gather things to put into your garden as well too, because there's a lot of simple things we can do for trellising and all that sort of stuff as well. But I think the point ultimately too, whether we can find really inexpensive do-it-yourself builds, or we can find and salvage other things out there to reuse in our garden. The point there too is just really gardening on a budget. You know what I mean? Finding ways to really be able to garden inexpensively. Because there's things out there, like stuff that we see that's sold out there. And for me, I look at a lot of the prices of stuff and I'm like, wow, I can make something that'll do that same purpose, constantly my mind's being that. And sometimes our creative mind is also seeing things out there that can do that same sort of thing as well too, to service those same purposes in our garden with, what other people would consider junk or things that they're throwing out. It's just, yeah, I love it. I love that stuff. I love that stuff. Jersey Girl says, I'm making a creamy cucumber salad right now, courtesy of my garden. Such a great time of year. Oh, whoops. Let's see here. Oh, okay. Let me see this. I guess it was a good thing I did hit that. Let me put it back up. Reminder, YouTube is not auto reloading the video portion of this show for all viewers. If you do not see me right now, reload this page. Yeah, that's a good idea then. I'm not sure what's going on with that or what's happening on the it's possibly the YouTube side of things or whatever, but that's a great reminder, Jay. Thank you. If you are seeing or experiencing that right now, and maybe that's what that is that, I don't know, maybe you're only hearing the audio, I'm not sure, or maybe you're only seeing the chat, could be. So maybe even my putting that up doesn't do any good, but if that's something you're experiencing, I hope that's getting fixed for sure. Rick says, repurpose, especially from building sites. Their skill bins have magical things to use in the garden. Yeah. I keep doing that every Jay says that situation is no video and only chat. Happened to me yesterday and today. Okay. All right. Let's hope it's not happening to anybody else. Hopefully that's something that can be fixed. If so, too, maybe it's a browser thing. Sometimes you might need to reload your browsers. Sometimes I find that works for certain things that are kind of glitchy on me as well, with other programs that run through a browser, like YouTube, or even this program I use for this show and everything as well too. So if that might be a case as well too, if you have any sort of situation like that. And Rick says he meant to say skip bins. Yeah, things that they're not using and toss out, or wood that's not quite right, that they can't use for a build or something like that as well too, is a great place to find stuff like that. Most lumber yards and especially those big box lumber stores like big Home Depot and stuff have bins of stuff like that as well too that you can get. It's always good to go through some of that sort of stuff and think about what you can do to fix maybe some sort of situation, or create a situation where you can utilize more space through vertical growing too, and build some types of trellises and stuff like that too as well. Okay, everybody. We're going to take a real quick break here for a second. And then when I come back, we're going to talk about this little quick subject here. And then I'm going to share with you all the link for the show. And I hope that everybody's been building up their bravery and they're ready to come on and say hi and join us for a few minutes or two. But yeah, we'll come back here in just one moment, and I've got something to talk about first. Let's Get Growing is sponsored by IV Organic.
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with IV Organics, where we grow cool plants and author Saving the World with the Home Garden. IV Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. 1 application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
All right. Continuing right along with the Sunday edition of our Let's Get Growing show, let's talk about cross-pollination. Okay, so I was kind of actually hoping to see, I don't see her here today, so maybe Selena's got something else going on. But she asked a question yesterday. What do you do if you only have one male squash flower, but only 2 female squash flowers that open at different times? Can you pollinate the first one and save the stamen for the next one? And I've actually done this. So here's a good this kind of is going to go on to a little kind of talk or whatever ramble I'm going to make about cross-pollination. I had a kind of a discussion on someone else's video recently. I kind of want to talk about, but I've done this. It's sometimes, in fact, we kind of talked about it. It's brought up yesterday, but sometimes you have a squash plant and it's growing, and I've seen this also in some of the other social media discussions and everything, that you see all these male flowers in your squash plants, or I've even had cucumber plants do this, melons, pumpkins, but just put out a ton of just male flowers. And that's just the flower without what you can see is what would be like a little tiny baby fruit there that needs to be pollinated so that it can then really start to mature. But sometimes you don't get very many female flowers that pop up. It's a ton of male flowers all the time. I had the issue with the one pumpkin that I had out there. It finally set some fruit for me, and they will too. They will eventually set fruit and will start to set more fruit than you can imagine eventually, but it's right at first because we're following along with our garden. We've been it's in most cases watching these plants since we planted them from seed. We've been hawkeyeing these things the whole time, so the process seems slow to us. So at first, when they just start producing all these male flowers all over the place, we start to get concerned, especially new gardeners getting concerned. Hey, wait a minute, where are any of these female flowers? But they'll eventually start to put them out. Or you might have a couple of different plants of the same variety, but you got to get those stamens into different ones. The one issue though, I don't necessarily how I accomplished this and did this was 2 different plants in 2 different sites. Now I've got another kind of garden that I need to pay a little bit more attention to over at my friend's place, where we have a couple of big 20-foot by 40-foot garden plots that we grow out of. And last year we were growing spaghetti squash from my place here and his place. It was the same one, same plants, the same seeds. I just planted some here, planted some there, and I had a female flower here and one over there, and I took one thing and I took it from here, stuck it in a little plastic bag, took it over there, put it in the other female, and pollinated both of them. Now, whether or not that or other sorts of pollination actually pollinated it, but I'm sure that that it's totally possible. The only thing I would say in that circumstance, if you're doing that and trying to take it to different female flowers, is that as soon as you remove those petals and you're just exposing the stamen there of the flower, the pollen's just really ready to drift. It's ready to roll, and then you start shaking it or anything, it's gonna start fall. So you're going, I don't know how many you would get to if you can go into a few of them and stuff, how many you possibly can do, but there's really only so much pollen, so you want to get as many as you can as quick as you can before you lose as much pollen out of it as possible. But my thing ultimately though is that I did that last year, and then because I was like, oh no, I don't know if we're getting fruits, and I was doing that as a seasoned gardener. Even I was like, oh, I'm gonna make sure I pollinate some and make sure I get some, and then eventually after that we ended up having a bunch of fruit up in the next coming months and all of that. So it wasn't really worth the worry or the effort for me to actually go through and do that. But yeah, you definitely can though. And if you do have only a couple, and maybe you only have one plant, you have one small space, and you're just really working and trying to get the most you can out of all of the flowers, and you want to be sure that they pollinate, absolutely. And I do that for sure. Just hopefully, and most likely though too, as I said, you should have more than one good male flower. But if that's the case, then it should be able to stretch out and get a couple of squash flowers. Now the point here too now is you could do this and take a male flower to another squash plant or something, or you could do something. You could try to cross-pollinate and see what you get for a new possible type of fruit if you wanted to. But here's a big misconception, and is that you can't get new fruit in the same year that you cross-pollinate. Say you take those flowers and you do that, that fruit that year is going to be whatever fruit that female flower was. That's good. That's just what it's going to be. Now, what's going to happen though is that you probably just now pollinated that female flower with another variety, another type of squash, right? Because we're looking at like varieties of things. You can't take a squash and cross-pollinate it with a watermelon. You know what I mean? You can't, those sort of things. There's a lot of cool, crazy things that plants can do, but there are some things that plants can't do. And that's one of them too, is crossing varieties and that sort of stuff across different types of plants. And I don't got the complete science down. I'd be able to tell you better, and someone could tell you a lot better than I can about this. And this is probably my ultimate point of what I'm about to talk about. My little rant I'm going on right now is that I don't know everything when it comes down to it. There's some things I kind of do know, and I've studied and learned about and read about, or I've talked with other master gardeners and professional gardeners about. I've talked to lots and lots of gardeners. I've got to learn a lot of things from a lot of different people. But one of the things is I don't ever really, let's say, stand my ground on my knowledge ultimately, because, who knows? And what I tell people is that, don't take my word for it. Go to a university extension. Go find a university extension, your local one's best for you, because they're the ones who are definitely going to help you best in your area to grow the best garden that you can in your area. And they're going to have all the information on pests, pest management, all of these sort of things that you want to know. Every question almost that you want to know about your garden is going to be really, really handled by a great master gardener program at a university extension, and that's your local one. But here's the thing I'll also say about different university extensions, though, too. Sometimes I've ran into looking at some information that right here at my local extension that I've had to point out and say, hey, these other extensions have ran this sort of research and have come to this conclusion about what you're talking about here. And sometimes they're not always privy to the latest things and all that sort of stuff, and have to catch up themselves to some of the other research and other extensions. But I find it's probably going to be your best bet is to find the people and get the information from those who truly and really study this sort of stuff, and ultimately I was on or found somebody's video, because I'm always out looking at new garden content creators making videos out there, and was looking at someone who's got a really small channel out there making a video, and it had a few content or comments on the video, and I was like, wow, that's really great for this person who's got a nice small channel like this, that they're getting so many good comments on their videos. So I thought, oh, let's dip in there and check out what the comments are. That's a dangerous thing to do on any video, anywhere, anytime. When it comes down to it, getting into a comment section, right? But this is gardening and gardening talk and all that sort of stuff. So it should be fun, should be all that. Maybe I'll find even some other channels. But what ended up happening is there was a person who was kind of critical on this person's, for one, presentation and then how they put their garden together. And basically told them that they were doing the wrong thing, and we're going to find out that later on when they're ready to harvest, that they'll find out that there were problems going to be in their garden because they were planting all of their squash plants and these other varieties too. They actually had different varieties of things too close together, and that they were going to cross-pollinate, and she wasn't going to get the fruit that she was looking to get. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. And I try not to, and this is one of the things, try not to get too like, too, I don't know, defensive about it. And I guess my form of defense in these sort of situations, or being defensive on this creator's part, mind you, or in their defense, is to kind of get a little offensive, I suppose. But I was kind of like, hey, wait a minute, first of all, let's clarify something. You don't mean saving seeds and then the fruit that you get next year, right? And they were really kind of, up front with me, like, no, I mean, right now, this is what's going to happen. And I was like, well, that's scientifically just not true. For one, I just wanted to kind of point that out. And in that, you can't get, a crossbow. The only one that I know that I've heard about, and I don't know for sure because I haven't necessarily studied too much into it, that was pointed out in another forum I was talking about a while back ago, was corn. That corn can actually produce different corn in the same year through cross-pollination. I'm not too sure about that, though. I can't say this for sure, and I wouldn't say that for sure. But that's one of the things I've heard. I don't know. But other than that, any other sort of thing, cross-pollination is going to affect the seed in that fruit of this year. You still get the same fruit. It's not going to change the fruit. It's not going to change characteristics. It's not going to be some sort of a different type of cross-pollinated fruit in your garden this year. The seeds you save from that fruit are possibly going to produce a different type of fruit, a possible hybrid of the two different parent plants that were cross-pollinated. And then that's when you're going to see that new fruit. And it's going to take you a whole nother year. You're going to have to take a whole nother season and grow a whole nother plant. And you're going to have to do that to find that new fruit. It's one of the reasons why I don't do a lot of seed saving and that sort of stuff when it comes to very easily cross-pollinated things in my small space garden. Because I want to grow a bunch of different stuff. And I want to grow a bunch of squash. And those squash are going to actually mingle together. They're not just going to be next to each other. I mean, squash that I grow on my back alleyway are mingling. they're growing through each other and around each other because I'm maximizing my space the best I can. And that's just the way those vines are going to happen. And cross-pollination is definitely something that could happen if I've got a couple of melons back there and they're mingling, or if I've got a couple of squash back there are mingling. Here's another big one. My peppers. My peppers are literally right next to each other and literally grow into each other as they grow, as I'm maximizing my space out there. I don't save the seeds in my peppers because of that cross-pollination possibility. I've saved seeds before and ended up having to find out a whole nother year, a whole nother process. And I talked about hovering over my plants, and I talked about how much I really like watch and I follow through with the cycle as my plants are going through it. There's a lot of care in time in the process of growing a plant to find out through a whole year later that I have a cross-pollinated plant. And sometimes what really happens, a lot of times I find with peppers and especially the peppers, is that you get just a funky fruit. It doesn't really, I mean, it's not much of anything. And I've had these weird, just kind of funky look, and they're very similar. When it's kind of like a weird kind of like cross kind of weird thing that happens to them sometimes. A lot of times though, if you're really doing some right, you can get some good crosses and some good things that happen. And these accidental crosses, which end up becoming some of the hottest peppers out there, I found out earlier this year when we were talking to, and we had our super hot pepper weekend and we were interviewing those folks and stuff like that. But that's pretty much the case. And I really had to kind of apologize ultimately, because I did kind of get a little like, hey, wait a minute, this isn't right. And they got really defensive at me and were like, hey, I wouldn't listen to anything that you're saying, is what they're saying. I would never listen to anything you're saying, is what they were saying to me. And then I kind of got defensive a little bit, and I was like, and really ultimately I just had to say is that, you know, when it comes down to it, I just don't want new gardeners coming across misinformation and then worrying about or thinking about certain things that they don't need to be worried about. And then therefore also carrying that, which is obviously what most likely happened to this gardener, is they're probably just had very minimal experience with this or any sort of thing when it comes to it specifically, and are probably in their first few gardens and probably or learned this maybe down the road a little while ago from someone else somewhere, and it just got passed on to them. So they carry that information, and then they're out there telling people as though they know what they're talking about, though. And this is really the ultimate issue, is passing and sending information to someone as though you know what you're talking about. If it's misinformation, it can be easily identified as misinformation. Then that's tough. I always go with the please don't take my word for it. And this is what I told him. I said, and I told the original content creator too, sorry, I don't want to be negative on your thing. I just want to say this ultimately is don't take my word for it. Go to your local extension and ask them about these sort of things. And then I told, and that's all I could tell the person. I don't know, who exactly they were ultimately. The name was kind of ambiguous. So, ultimately I was just like, hey, don't take my word for it. Just go ask your local extension. Can a cross-pollinated plant produce cross-pollinated fruit in the same year? Simple question. Ask them. You'll get your answer. You don't have to take my word for it. Anyway, so that's kind of my rant there. It's on cross-pollination and that sort of thing. It is kind of just one of these kind of misconceptions about it that kind of gets carried around by some folks. And then when it's passed around as though it's definitive, they know what they're talking about, thing, then it's, and like I said, there's crazy things plants can do. And there's just some things that plants can't do. And and there's just certain things, certain ways work, and certain things work. So right on. Let's see here. It's about time. I hope everybody is ready because let's see here. Actually, real quick, let me before. Rob joined us here. Rob, awesome to see you. Thanks for joining with us today from the UK. He says it's not very often I save seed due to cross-pollination, and that's the big thing. I don't worry about it because I want to maximize my space. I want to grow as much as I can. So I'm not really truly worried about saving seed out of my garden when it comes to highly susceptible things, you know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff I do save seed from, you know, like my radishes and things like that, that I don't really necessarily worry about it. So when it comes down to it, you know, I just don't worry about saving seed on a lot of that stuff. But that also does become where it is something that we get to learn just a little bit more as we get and gain more experience about gardening and our understanding of about the science and how gardening works and all of that, is that you know, we get to then kind of be able to know a little bit more about what plants are a little bit more susceptible to this than other plants are. Like one of the ones I've really found, and can happen though, but it's been very rare for me, is tomatoes. I grow tomatoes very close to each other, very close to each other, and I save tomato seed. And I always, and I've not ran into a crossed or funky tomato out of anything I've had growing next to each other or around each other or anything, because tomatoes are great self-pollinators. They really hold in that pollen within the flower. So if you really want to cross-pollinate them or do that, you really got to make an effort with tomatoes. It's not, and I haven't seen yet in my garden over all the years I've grown them really close, anything I've saved, and I save a lot of my tomato seed because of that, and I regrow similar tomato varieties every year and haven't had an issue yet with tomatoes. So that's just one that I've found personally from my own anecdotal personal experience, is that tomatoes aren't as easily cross-pollinated. If you want to, you can, and that's just really pulling that inner part of the flower and opening that stamen up. You pull that off and then get into another one, pull them both up and really get them going. You got to get in there and really make sure that pollen is crossing into those flowers, because there are self-pollinating flowers like that. Because the weird thing is that tomato or peppers, same thing. They are a self-pollinating flower, but they cross really easily for some reason. So, you know, hey, you know, what are you to do? All right, all right. Anybody else in here? I want to make sure. Let's see. And LP was mentioning here too, though, it was the first year of gardening. My snap peas took a shape more similar to my snow peas. They were right next to each other, but I was not getting the fruits mixed up. Well, I mean, maybe that could be an issue. I'm not sure on that one. Yeah. Let's see here. I've not seen it in anything else, and grow a lot of different varieties of same plants. Yeah, maybe that is one. Again, too, I wouldn't say that there couldn't be something. I suppose too, like I said, corn. I have someone was someone I listened to about other things and stuff, and was kind of mentioning that. So I thought, oh, I better dig a little deeper to find out a little bit more about that. But all right, here. Let's see here. Now I want to get on to this. I'm just LP says it wasn't every pea, but it was weird. Yeah, yeah. I've had plants though too, where they and of different things, not necessarily peas, but other plants, kind of just produce some funky fruits, and then the rest were all just fine. And they were, kind of all, sometimes make me wonder, is something going on in the pollination process? It's probably likely the situation, so who's to say what it is exactly? Okay, all right, here we are. Let me get this going. Let's find out. I've got to do this first. I'm going to put that. That's what we got to do. Now, I'm going to post this into the comments, everybody. First, I'll talk about real quick is that I'm going to post this link into the comments. And again, I want to encourage everybody to not be so shy. And so here's what's going to go is I'm going to post in the comments. Anybody volunteers, you'll pop up. I'll see you. And then I'll work you in, and we'll bring you into the conversation, and we'll have a little chat or so. And if anybody else, brave enough to jump in, you'll pop in here. I'll see you. stay there, don't move. You just wait until I get an opportunity, or we finish up the conversation with the person we're talking to, if there's more than one person or someone else is already talking. So this is my point here, means that if someone is on, don't hesitate to click that link still and come on, because I can have a bunch of people in here waiting, and kind of like, one of those call-in talk shows that, on the radio, they can have a bunch of people on, get so-and-so on line 4, that sort of, they were aligned to. I have that sort of situation here. So if there is someone here that pops in, you can still hit that link, still pop in, get everything set up. I'll see you, and then we'll kind of move, we can move on and join in on the conversation with you as well too. Here's my big point here, is that we're really just a nice small community here. We gather each and every week here on the Let's Get Growing show, and this is a great opportunity. Like we had the other week when Jay volunteered to come on, and we just had a nice long conversation with Jay that was wonderful. And if everybody's really shy, I guess that would be the case too. If someone does volunteer, maybe we'll talk a little while longer. But I hope to have more than one person today. Let's have some volunteers. Anybody can do this. It's really simple. If you have a laptop, you have a smartphone, you click this link. It's just going to ask for permission to access your camera and your microphone. And that's it. And then it's going to set you up, and you'll be here. I'll see you in the studio, and then I can bring you into the conversation. I can even bring you in. I might even bring us in together. So if someone else joins in and I'm talking to somebody, I can bring us all together and then do something like that as well. We'll see where it goes. We'll see what happens. But don't be shy. Don't be shy. Don't be shy, because we all get to hang out and talk with each other right here. I'm out. I'm obviously out forward with y'all, being the host of the show and all of that. But this is a great chance for us to all just kind of have a chance to hang out and talk with each other and all of that sort of thing as well too. So here we go. I am going to drop this link in, and I hope we can get somebody to join us. Let's see here. We got to do this, and then we got to do this. Okay, there you go, everybody. There you go. And then I'm going to drink some of my coffee. I'm going to give everybody a chance to get their bravery up and click the link. Right on, right on, right on. So anyways, other than that, ask some questions too. Give me something to talk about. I had that whole rant about cross-pollination in mind and everything, but that was all I really kind of set myself up for anything to talk about when it comes down to it. But all right, let's see here. Oh, and Jay mentions here too is that definitely did not take your comment as an argument at all. Yeah, we don't do that here, and I don't. I new things and trying to figure things out, or what we're here doing in the garden. And sometimes it's those experiences that we have that are good for us to know, hey, this and that, even though we know something in general about something like cross-pollination. In general, it's true. You can't grow and cross-pollinate plants and have different fruit in the same year in general. But there are weird things that plants do, and sometimes we're going to see some funky things that they do, whether or not it's a true cross-pollination, or there was just something that happened in the pollination process itself, or anything like that. Then we're just digging deep into science and all that sort of stuff and all of that, you know what I mean? And those are interesting things that even plant scientists sometimes scratch their heads and wonder and think about too. But in general, that's not what's going to be happening or taking place, and that's what we know about cross-pollination and all that sort of stuff. And like Jay says, we don't want to, if we're talking gardening and you're just bringing something forward, or at least not being, here's the thing, it's just ultimately the point comes down to is just being negative about something. Like when I was in this conversation with this other person, on this other person's video, mind you, this poor person's video, who's just trying to make fun new gardening content. But the thing is, and the ultimate point is to not be negative. To be is bringing people along. And that was hopefully what I was trying to do initially with this person, was to kind of bring them in. Like, hey, wait a minute, you don't mean this, because this is that, and this is what I've learned from this extension and this and that this doesn't work. And they took that sort of type of tone, in a sense, too, of like, hey, I would never listen to anything you're saying, don't, and it was just that sort of thing was kind of like, that was like, oh, wait a minute, that's not the type of conversation we're trying to have here. And if we're trying to be negative or throw each other off or do anything like that, that's when things get bad. And that's when I started apologizing to this poor person who made this great little video. In fact, I'm thinking about reaching out to this person. They're a very small channel and kind of don't run within the parameters of what we do for bringing on, you know what I mean? And just to be honest, it's usually a limitation that I'll have, is that what I want is people who are kind of into it. They're doing it. You know what I mean? So usually those who are at monetization levels of things, 1,000 subscribers, we're looking at those sort of things. So those are the types of channels that we're bringing on for small channels for our things. So this is a really small channel. They're just really kind of getting going, but I feel really bad about this experience on their videos. So I might just reach out to them and just give them a great fun plug and bring them here on the show for the Are You Following Me segment or something, if they're up to it or something. I've been thinking about that as well, because I gotta feel bad about it, because I don't like that sort of thing. I want to bring people along in gardening, even though there are misconceptions and things that we all can kind of take in and understand. I myself do all the time on certain things too. I've got to take the time to research and learn things before I want to pass that information to other people, or at least if there's something that I somewhat question whether or not I even know the complete information, I will always make sure that I am bringing this person along to the greater gardening community and finding other resources for them, mainly local university extensions, where people are doing the science and the work to learn about these sort of things, so that they can get more definitive of information from those who really, do and work and study all this sort of stuff. So hopefully, that's the case. Anyways, I put that link out there. Come on, guys. Come on. Somebody's got to be brave enough here. Someone's got to be brave enough. I know someone was mentioning it. I don't know if they headed out or if they're not here or what, because I haven't seen them since they were on just a little bit earlier. But yeah, let's see here. Let me paste it one more time in here. That way everybody's got it. Simple little link. All you do is click it. Who's a brave soul? Come on. Oh, LP says, I cannot come up. You can't come up? Oh, come on now. But I have a question for everyone. How often do you allow volunteers to grow? I can't make up my mind. Good question. And there's a couple of different things. I have certain volunteers I literally kind of allow, and they're almost not volunteers if you think about it. Like I purposely let fruit fall and do its thing in certain areas to have volunteers, like my Praxis cherry tomatoes that I get, the Prax cherry tomatoes. I let some of the big fruits just literally ripen till they fall right off of the plant, land in the soil, do their thing. I don't touch nothing, don't do nothing, and then they pop up the next year. And then I weed out all of the excess volunteers until I've got them spaced out and just right, and then I grow those new plants to grow for the next year, and then they drop new ones, and then they volunteer the next year and do that. And so I kind of, I manage the volunteers is probably the best way to say it. I manage that situation. I did have a bunch of I'm sure one of my cucumbers got into the compost bin, and some of those, and it's a standing compost bin, so it's not a hot compost bin, so those seeds don't burn basically. And so I spread cucumbers all over my garden, and I had cucumbers popping up all over the place. And that was kind of the big question for me was, do I let cucumbers do I let the cucumbers grow and keep growing? And there were a few that I did pull out, and there were probably a couple I should have pulled out because cucumber plants, squash plants, melons, pumpkins, these sort of things, as we've been talking about, as I was talking about cross-pollination and all that as well too, they're not very good companion plants. And it's not that like when a lot of people think when we're talking about companion planting, we're talking about like the root systems, and do they kind of, do they work together? Should we be planting them near each other, that sort of things? But in some ways, we also have to think about companion plants in a different ways. Do they make just good neighbors? And curcubits don't make good neighbors at all. They will reach over and grab another plant. They'll yank it down. They'll they'll reach over and grab another thing over here, and they'll yank it down and pull your plants around and do all sorts of things to them, because they are basically reaching for things to grab and to stabilize and to hold for support, as they're either going to try to climb or they're going to try to spread. And they use those things to either kind of like, if they're on the ground, they'll grab onto things on the ground kind of too, to help pull them along and move them along as they spread, and to grab onto things so that they can set themselves to set roots if they're going along the ground. Or if they hit something and they start going upwards, they're reaching and looking for things to set and grab for support so they can go vertical. And they can be really, really bad neighbors. And when it comes down to it. So I should have gotten rid of some of these cucumbers, is what I'm saying. So when it comes down to some volunteers, it really just comes down to, do you really just want them in that space? If they're neighbors like these cucumbers or other melons and stuff, then possibly you might want to consider whether or not they're going to do other things to other plants nearby, as far as those vines and grabbing onto things. All right. Excellent. So again, too, here, I do have a volunteer sitting in the wings right now. So we'll be on with just one moment with that. I do just want to mention again to everybody else that we are having just basically kind of an open house, fun little discussion for everybody here. We do have some people. It's just kind of fun for everybody here in our little community hanging out today to just kind of join along and be a part of the conversation. So again, if you want to just jump on, say hi. If you got a little channel you want to talk about or something, say hi as well. I just posted the link one more time for everybody in case you're just joining now and you haven't heard that that's what we're doing today. But yeah, if you'd like to jump on, grab our link, jump on to that. Again, too, for those who haven't done it before, don't be shy. Really, really, seriously. It's really easy. Your computers and phones will hook right up, and it won't be much of an issue at all. And all we'll do is talk with everybody here and get a chance to meet and introduce yourself to everybody. So with that being said, I got to do one thing real quick. Well, I got to do one couple of other things real quick, and we're going to get to our guest here. I want to make sure I get this right. This is the kind of another fun part of doing these things on the fly too. Like this is also fixing up a couple of the other things that we got to do. Make it a little better. I don't know if I can do this totally, but we'll see. I know that much at least, so we'll do that there. And I've got to change this too. All right, so we got our first volunteer today. Again, everybody, don't be shy. Jump on in again, too. We're going to bring on our first guest here, and that doesn't mean that you can't still jump in, too. You jump in, you put in, I'll see you in there. We'll possibly bring you either into the conversation or we'll I don't know. Maybe that's what we'll do. We'll see what we do. But I definitely encourage you. I see we got Brampton Gardner in with us now. We also got Rob. Rob's Allotment Gardening. Rob, I'd love to talk to you. Everybody would love to meet you. Riverdale Gardens is here right now as well, too. Jersey Girl. Come on, everybody. Let's do it. I mean, we all know each other. Just let's meet each other face to face. So let's meet our first guest today face to face. This person actually lives just right down the road from me, actually. So we've actually got to meet already once before too. So this is a person I've actually already got to meet. And let's see here. Let's get this going real quick. And sorry. There we go. There we are. Make sure we do that. Adam Burleigh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi.
Perfect. Awesome. Great to see you, Adam. Thanks for joining with us. Thanks for jumping on there. Adam's from right down the road from me, right up in Central Point, Oregon, here in the Rogue Valley, one of the most beautiful valleys in the United States of America.
One of the hottest right now, too.
What's that?
And also one of the hottest ones right now, too.
Yeah, it's starting to cook again. We had a little bit of relief yesterday. It wasn't much, but it's very short-lived because it's going to be another near 100-degree day today, too, huh?
That is for sure. I was out in the garden earlier this morning, and I was out there for maybe 20 minutes and just dripping sweat.
Yeah, for sure. Dripping. Definitely. So right on, man. Again, too, as I was just mentioning, everybody, we did get the good fortune of meeting each other early on this year, and it was really fun to meet you and your friend Carla and everything as well too. That was a really fun hangout, and really great of you to jump on and basically introduce yourself to everybody else here in the Urban Gardener community. So thanks for being brave and jumping on and.
Well, I figured Jay came in last week or the week before, and so now the mall cop's got to come in and do it.
That's right. Let's see. So, I see English Ladies Kitchen Garden jumping in there too. Everybody, let's see here. Real quick, let me make sure my signal is a bit enough tonight. So if I suddenly do, okay, it wasn't so okay. All right, definitely. But definitely. Hopefully we get some other brave souls to jump in as well too. But thank you, Adam, so much for doing that. How's everything growing in the garden this year? It's hot.
This year is pretty tough. I've been pretty busy with Rogue Biota. And then with this heat, just everything is just so slow to get going right now because my garden's in full sun from sun up to sundown. And it's just slow. Battling with gophers in the garden this year pretty bad. So they're taking out I think I have 10 tomato plants left out of about 45 that I planted from gophers taking those completely out.
Really? Yeah, so we were kind of talking a little bit about that yesterday on yesterday's show. You got kind of an issue with both things we're talking about. You got the gophers who are really just having a heyday with all your tomatoes, but also your garden's in the full sun. And I was kind of talking about that yesterday, is that some of us, it's great, if, for those of us who suggest using some shade cloth, if you have the possibility of using some shade cloth in your garden to help out for some plants. But some folks, gardens are just wide open and big, and they're just out in the full sun, and there's just no way you're going to shade cloth something like that.
And that's the issue with my garden, is it's 95 feet by about 60. So with me trying to get that much shade cloth out there, it would be just a fortune to cover with shade cloth.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, sometimes that's just not a choice that we have, and we just kind of have to, hopefully, in some of those cases, build up and hopefully have good, strong plants that can just bear through the heat. And the best we can do in middays, maybe some nice midday sprinkling to cool them off a little bit or something. But other than that, they've just got to make it through. And then you've got the gophers, so then that becomes the whole nother type of issue. It doesn't matter how strong a plant you got. In fact, they prefer your nice big strong plants. So, you know,
yes, they do.
So you know, what good is it then, right?
Exactly. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I lost 2 of my fruit trees last year to gophers that I had in for it was their 3rd season. And just as they were starting to set fruit, gophers came in and took them out.
Yeah. Let's see here. Let's see. I'm gonna try this right here. Question: do I need to feed my sweet corn? If yes, what would you suggest? You got any ideas on that, Adam, at all?
I typically just use compost in the fall and in the spring, and then if I notice that they're not growing as fast as I want them to, I'll get a well-balanced organic fertilizer. That's like the one that I buy is 444, and just kind of throw it on there about once a month or so, and my corn does amazing.
Yeah, just a balanced, dry organic fertilizer.
Yeah, and just kind of scratch it in as I'm putting it on.
That's all I've ever told people, and you know, I mean, other than a couple of like, you know, I mean, Ivy Organics, who we promote here and is our sponsor, makes a great dry organic fertilizer. So if that's something you do want to use in your garden, I recommend that one for sure. But that's all I've really ever recommended to people for feeding necessarily, is just a balanced organic fertilizer when it comes down to it. Because, and I think that's one of the things that, you know, I really like to talk to you about too today, is because we both come from kind of, and I have never taken any of the classes or anything like that as you have, but I have definitely listened to a lot of lectures, and I come from that whole base of understanding of the soil food web and Dr. Elaine Ingham's, you know, ideas of composting and compost teas and things like that. And that's where I really come from, is that I find that it really truly is just basics when it comes down to it. And that's really one of the best ways we can garden, is utilizing basics, and the benefits to our gardens are just amazing. And when it comes to corn and sweet corn, that's all I've ever really done too. Maybe a well-balanced fertilizer if I've done that. The big thing for corn is it's a water. It's a thirsty plant.
Yes.
You know, when it comes down to it. So, you know, we want to feed plants to a certain amount, you know, when it comes down to it. But some plants, especially summer, warm season plants, are usually pretty thirsty plants, and they just want to drink when it comes down to it. So if we can give them a good balanced compost and then a good amount of water, they're probably in good shape.
Yes, definitely. That's been one of my issues this year, is that I've been so busy with doing analysis this year that I haven't been able to get out to the garden and actually keep up with the watering like I should be.
Oh, I'm telling you, yeah.
It's just with this heat
and the way it dries up so fast, man. I can't. And it's why I'm so thankful for for the container, because I use mostly those wicking earth buckets for my containers. So really thankful for those, because they really, really do a lot of help in my smaller garden spaces. But for my in-ground and some of the other types of elevated beds that I have and things, it just dries out so fast, you know, or it's the heat is just so much for the plants that, you know, everything, no matter how much water I give them, they still just they're just hanging there.
That is so true.
And it's just like, I'm just like, you poor plants, it'll be just a couple more hours and the sun will go down and it'll be just fine. And they do, and you see them, the sun goes down, they perk right back up. And
oh yes, they do. It's like magic.
It's because they are really just utilizing a defense system, right? And that's what that is. It's not them
Definitely.
necessarily dying or anything. Although I always go out there and I'll get the water nice and cool first. I always check to make sure the water's nice and cool. When it's nice and cool, I'll get out there and I'll just spray them down, just to kind of give those leaves just a little bit of midday relief. and they just kind of perk back. They're like, oh, thank you. And then that kind of helps them kind of strengthen up for the rest of the evening. Some days it's just hot enough to where they just start maybe going back down a little bit, and then the sun will go down and then they part back up. So, but they do love that midday kind of relief.
Yes, they do for sure. Yeah, I work day shift, so majority of my watering it is in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And working 40 plus hours a week, you can't get out in the morning when you're punching in at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, afternoon watering's not, or morning watering's not an option for me.
Yeah.
So,
I've
never had any issues with it.
My personal schedule becomes hard to do.
Yes.
Because I do and work in the evening times. So sometimes my evenings run late. So an early morning isn't as doable and that sort of thing, Sometimes I'm really scrambling and getting things going when it comes to it. So usually it's just a best I can do in the early part of the day is I try to get up as early as I can. It's just a nice early assessment. I've got to get moving on to some other things. And then usually I'm in that same situation. It's mid-afternoon and I've got some time now, from the things that I had to really get done doing. And then I'm just kind of give them that relief watering in the afternoons. And then I try to really make sure they're good to go in the evenings. You got to be careful too, some plants, especially this time of year, we're talking a lot about these squash and all of that too, is watering overhead, as we're getting into evening type of watering, which is somewhere where I'm really kind of stuck to doing. I start to recommend when we get to this time of year, high heat is one thing because the plants will dry off pretty quick in some points in time, but in the evening, it can really get stagnant. And the humidity can start happening. And if you're watering, we can start creating fungal issues. And one big issue that this can really cause a lot of damage with, and I've had a lot happening, is powdery mildew can eventually start to take shape in that sort of situation when we're doing some overhead evening watering. So I have to in the evening, so I make sure instead of overhead, I bust that sprayer off of the, nozzle off of the hose, and I just kind of set the hose at the base. And then I just kind of do some ground soaking. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And I know for me, August is usually when my cucumbers start to get the mildew growing on them. They're getting towards the end of their life cycle anyways. And the mildew just knows. And
it knows. And there's so much. I mean, I've done so much to try to manage and keep it back the best I can. The only thing I've found that holds it off the longest possible, and that's the best I think the best I possibly can do, is just really to hold it off as long as possible, is to take that strategy, is to stop watering overhead and stop getting those leaves wet at that point in time in summer, when we've really just kind of hit the crest and we're starting to seeing that cool down. Right as it starts to hit that point where we're starting to ready to hit and go towards fall, that's when I want to just stop watering overhead, and I start just soaking and soaking just the root base from right at the base of the plant with all of them, the cucumbers, the squash, all of that sort of stuff, to try to head off the powdery mildew as much as possible, because it's still going to happen. It still finds its way on my plants. And then at that point in time, I'm trying to clip leaves best, because it's usually the older leaves too, so your plant can handle, and it can handle losing some of them. So I should grab them as soon as I start seeing them. I take them off and get them weighed to try to hold it off again from the more healthier leaves. But eventually there's a point where it just goes, and it's just so hard to hold back.
For sure.
But hopefully you've held off long enough and been getting enough harvest, and your plants are producing well enough that the fruit isn't going to be affected.
Yes. And of course, I was actually just out in the garden this morning, pruning off my lower leaves off my cucumbers. And like anybody that grows cucumbers, as I was pruning off the lower leaves that are starting to fade, I'm like, oh, wow, I missed that one. Oh, wow, I missed that one, and got some pretty giant pickling cucumbers that I thought I had gotten.
Oh, man, and that's the thing again, too, about curcumins and those things is that we see the one, and we're like, oh, yeah, it's got one more day. I'll come back tomorrow and I'll get it. And then you come back tomorrow and it's this giant thing, like just blown in a balloon. It's like, it's amazing.
And they hide too. You tell yourself you're going to remember where they are, and then when you go out there, you're like, I can't find it, and then you end up finding it 2 or 3 days later.
Yeah. And with the cucumbers, they're big and blown up and yellow, and like, oh man, all they're good for is seed now, and I'm not saving the seeds. So, and that is kind of the interesting thing, though, and in talking about cross-pollination too, that I actually didn't mention too, that I was just reminded of, was these cucumbers that I was talking about that are volunteering around from the soil compost I must have spread around from this last year. I've let a few of them go, but they're producing nice like pickling cucumbers. Very similar to the pickling cucumber I grew last year. So, it was probably one of those varieties, and it's still growing pretty true to the variety it was last year. So it didn't cross or didn't have any issues with any of the other cucumbers and varieties because I grow different varieties all around each other. I let them wine. I let them interweb, or they're however they do things and stuff, vine together. And and so the seed this year that came from those from last year produced a similar one. So, I didn't have any problem with cross-pollination on something that ended up being a volunteer ultimately. But again, too, I had to kind of go through the process of watching the plant wait till it produces fruit to find out, whether that was going to be the case or not. But again, it's just really one of the reasons why I don't save seed, is because I want to utilize as much space as possible to grow as many varieties as possible.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Let's see. Riverdale Gardens saying, I've learned to plant 3 or 4 waves of cucumbers 2 or 3 weeks apart. When you are spending way too much time trying to save and struggling plant, pull it out and concentrate on the next wave. Yeah. Bigger gardens. Is that something you think about at all?
It is with my slicing cucumbers. With my pickling cucumbers, I grow them in a 4x8 raised bed, and I have anywhere from 15 to 18 plants going at a time, trellised. And so when I'm harvesting, I'm pulling them and canning them. And once I get my allotment, usually I can get just one iteration with my pickling cucumbers for first planting, then I'm done with them for the year. Yeah,
because you got everything you needed.
Yes.
Exactly. That's perfect. Let's see. English Lady's Garden was, I got first panty pan squash has appeared today. We had lovely ones last year. Awesome. Love those too. Those are good squash.
Yep. I actually just picked my first patty pan this morning also.
Oh, look at that. Perfect. Right on. Let's see here. So tell me a little bit more about, we'll talk about Rogue Biota, but let's start with, again, too, as we kind of mentioned already, we kind of follow along those similar ideals about, compost and the soil food web and all of that. But you've actually gone through the classes. You're a certified soil food web. What are you called, I guess?
So currently consultant? I am a soil food web certified lab tech.
Okay, there you go.
I'm still going through consultancy training for the soil food web.
Oh, perfect.
It's just from me being a nerd with gardening. I was really intrigued with it and wanted to delve into what's coming in, how the whole function of the soil food web works.
Right. Okay. And so tell us a little bit more. Maybe, some folks might be, or I hope a lot of people have heard about the soil food web, but maybe someone hasn't. Tell us just a little bit more, how would we define this and what.
Okay, so basically what Dr. Elaine Ingham has done is she's gone through over 40 years of doing her line of work with the soil food web. Mm-hmm. And using the microbiology that's in the soil, such as nematodes and amoeba, flagellates. What they're doing is they're in the soil eating all the bacteria and fungi. And you're trying to focus on maintaining the bacteria and fungi in a particular ratio for depending on what successional plants you're trying to grow. And then as the predators, the nematodes and amoeba and stuff are consuming those when they basically poop.
Right. Yeah.
By the plant roots, they're feeding the plant roots. And the plants are they're telling the bacteria and fungi what nutrients and minerals that they need. And then the bacteria and fungi are going out and gathering it all. So that way, when they're consumed, they have everything that they need.
Yeah. And it's really just the idea that, there's this whole kind of, circle of, people know of the circle of life, right? There's this kind of circle of life that's going on in soil biology. That's just really,
definitely.
And which is really just creating, and not, I didn't say creating, but it's just this balance that we're looking to have established through this circle of life that's going on, that then gives everything that plant life really needs to really thrive. Because roots don't necessarily just go in and suck out everything themselves. They need other things to do things and provide things and do stuff so that they can then be able to access these nutrients and these different things. And it's the work of these other different nematodes and microorganisms and all these different things and their whole thing together that really creates that balance we're looking for. And there's a lot of things that people in I guess human nature has come kind of used to using and doing things. We talked a little bit about integrated pest management yesterday. You know what I mean? And people using chemicals for that sort of stuff. Well, it's the same sort of thing when we're talking about soil biology and what we need with the soil pests. I don't know what we'd say. They're little bugs. They're little organisms. They're these things that are inside of the soil doing this work that needs to be done, that is so essential to create the type of soil biology that our plants are going to need to thrive. The root systems are just going to need to really thrive. And sometimes people are getting used to this idea of putting chemicals in there to give the roots the things they need, and then they're throwing the balance of everything completely off. And we've seen in history they've done and taken tactics of whether they're doing other things to the soil, whether it's chemicals or not, or other things they're doing. But what people have done is created such unbalanced soil that farms and farm systems and other garden systems, soil systems can't thrive. And so, that's when Dr. Elaine Ingham comes in and really creates this whole soil food web thing to help go and show farmers and people, especially these larger scale systems, how to get back to caring for the soil and reintroducing all of these, bugs and worms and fungi and things that that create the life. When we just go dump a bunch of stuff all over a field, we're altering that balance, right?
Your soil.
Yeah, you're altering that balance, and now the soil's in a struggle. Find that balance, and if the soil's in a struggle, what are you going to expect from a plant, right?
Yes, exactly. And well, it's like my train of thought on it is Mother Nature has been doing this for eons.
Yeah.
She knows how it works. And
Mm-hmm.
the baseline of the soil food web school is you're basically just reintroducing Mother Nature back into the process. And then you just sit back and let it happen, because it's all checks and balances. Same thing with the pest management, bringing in the good bugs to get rid of the bad ones. It's the same process in the soil. Is you're bringing in all the good biology, and they'll take out root feed and nematodes, and you can get rid of the downy mildew with teas from your compost if the biology's there.
Yep.
And it's just all about the checks and balances with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again too, that like you just mentioned too, and we were talking, you know, the powdery mildew. We're talking about all these different sort of things and pests and all that sort of healthy plants. Healthy soil creates healthy plants.
Yes, it
you
does.
know, and that resists a lot of these sort of things. Healthy plants resist these sort of things. It even helps resist some of our pest pressures and things. You know, we're talking aphids and all this other stuff as well too. Healthy plants. So it just comes down to healthy soil. The healthier our soil, the better our soil, the healthier our plants are, and best chance they have to thrive. Thriving plants resist things.
Yes, definitely. The more beneficial you have it above and underground, the more they're going to fight all the stuff you don't want in your gardens.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. All right, let's see here. I know we had a question just a little bit ago. I want to make sure we get in here. Rick from Australia asks, Adam, do you try to capture the gophers or use wire cages around the roots of fruit trees to protect the roots? That's a good question for someone who's dealing with gophers.
I don't use gopher wire, and I guess technically I capture them, but they're not alive when I do. I use what is called a gopher hawk, and sometimes it's a waiting game. But I also have a pretty good gopher and rat cat that goes out and hunts, and
I'm a cat guy.
Pretty good at getting them, yes. And but they're kind of getting out of control. I think my neighbor's been chasing them in my yard because he figured out that I was kind of nudging all the gophers to his yard.
Right. So now it's kind of a little back and forth, maybe.
Yes.
And it you know, there could be more gophers than one cat can handle for sure. You might have to get yourself a few more of them, right?
Yes.
But yeah, that's the thing though. I don't like to think that we have to be, you know, like killing nature in a way. It's a tough thing.
Yes,
but you know what, we're talking about food, and we're talking about subsistence, and we're talking about this sort of situation where, you know, rodents and deer and these sort of things, we've got to find ways, and hopefully we can find the most humane ways as possible. But sometimes that's just not how nature works. And if a gopher was in a territory it doesn't belong in, and we're stealing the food of another animal in nature, it's going to pay a pretty heavy price for it. And that's kind of how we have to kind of look at it in gardening and farming and that sort of thing as well too. We have to be somewhat protective of our crops and our things. You know, I like to grow enough, for one, to hopefully make sure that, you know, whatever happens, possibly, you know, I've got enough, you know. But I definitely don't, you know, shame anybody for having to take a more authoritative response to protecting their crops and their things when it comes down to it, because there's just too much damage some animals can do when it comes down to it. And again, like I said, it's just not how nature works. And if we're talking about having a garden that works in a cycle, just like nature builds. Like we're talking about, the soil food web is just basically an examination and a study of how nature really creates a balance of its own. You know, that's the balance in nature, is that, you know, an animal, deer wanders into an area and is munching on some food or some berries or something that a bear prefers or something, you know, and, you know, hopefully the deer gets away fast enough, right, in its own sake, right? But there might not be a case it could get away, and that's just kind of the way nature works.
Well, and I'm pretty sure this year why I'm having such a big problem with the gophers is this year I've put down tons of wood chips in the walkways this year. And usually what I do is I'm out there with a push mower mowing between my rows. So the gophers have the native weeds and grasses to consume those roots, and they generally, in past years, have left all my plants alone.
Right.
This year, I've taken their food that they're used to away, and gophers are actually good for the soil food web.
Yeah,
they're aerating the soil and making their passages and stuff like that. So I'm assuming that's why I'm having such an issue with them this year, is because I've taken away their native food.
Yeah. I like this here. Rob asks, what sort of animal is a gopher? Jersey Girl says, a big rat. Are gophers a rodent, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's just a big rat. Rats are rodents.
Yeah. Well, I would call it a small rat.
Right. You know, that's kind of true though too, huh? I mean, rats could be a lot bigger than gophers, right?
Yes.
I'm not around them enough to know really. You know, I guess when I think of them, I think of maybe kind of a good size gopher or whatever, maybe, but they are actually kind of not that big, are they?
No, they're a little bit bigger than a hamster.
Yeah.
About the same size of a mole, just not as ugly as a mole.
Oh gosh, moles or something. that's what they say, right? A face only a mom could love, right?
Yes.
Oh my God, never seen anything more horrifying looking than a mole. That's just great. That's great. Right on. So let's see here now. So you've been taking the classes and you're still looking to become more of a consultant and all that sort of stuff. And you've started your own business this year. You know, one of the things that we're very similar between the both of us and what I do here and what you're doing with your own business is that we both work day jobs. And then we, you know, or for me, night job, you know what I mean? And then I got to spend my time to work my business and my show and my things that, you know, that are, you know, really my, in a sense, you know, a passion project to one thing, but it's also something I want to make a, you know, I would love to, you know, be the thing I can do and make a living, you know. And tell us a little bit more about how you came about the idea for one, and then kind of how that process came about that you you know, started doing these classes and then started your own business, Rogue Biota, and then tell us a little more about what it is you actually do there.
So it first started out with me wanting to do the foundational courses that the Soil Food Web offers, and then I found out that they do additional training where you can become a lab technician or a consultant for the Soil Food Web. And I figure since I was already spending so much money on the foundation courses, I might as well spend the extra money to make some money off of the Soil Food Web by being certified with them. So that's kind of the gist of it, of where I got started with it, was I just wanted to know more about the Soil Food Web. And with the lab technician certification, it's just broadened my knowledge even further, because now I'm identifying more organisms with my microscope and learning what the correct balances are that are needed in the soils for whatever plant you're trying to grow.
Right on. So What kind of I mean, how well is things going? You're starting to build clients, you're starting to do things and all of that. I mean, this is really just your first year, right?
Yes, it's my first solid year.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a pretty big client of a local college.
Excellent.
And they've been keeping me busy from the time I get off of work until I pretty much go to bed. I'm in front of the microscope.
Yeah.
So they've been keeping me really busy this summer. So they actually found me through one of the state of Oregon's websites that I didn't even know that Rogue Biota was on, that the state's referring people.
Oh, that's great.
And I'm like, wow, this is awesome.
That's amazing. Some things can just come from unexpected places. That's for sure.
Yes,
huh?
Definitely.
That's awesome.
I
That's
figure
awesome.
free advertising through the state, and might as well just take it.
Yeah. When things cool down here a little bit too, we're gonna have to get you over here to the gardens too, and get you and make a video or something like that, so we can talk a little bit more about it and get in and just do a little more discussion on soil sciences and stuff like that. It's something I like to really maybe, do a little bit more of, and maybe do a little more kind of videos and things where we can really kind of just highlight soil science and the importance of that sort of stuff, because it really is the basis. I mean, it's the medium. Artists, use canvases to paint these great paintings and all of that. In nature, we have soil to create this just amazing, natural world we get to live in and everything. And soil is that medium. And the more we care for that, the more beautiful things can be. It's all there. And it's all about that. And I think that's just something that I think we can really use a lot more focus on as we think about stuff. Because a lot of people, again, too, it comes down to these things. We hear just tons of questions, people who are out there gardening and learning about gardening and growing. What do I do about these aphids on my plant? Or what do I do about these sort of things here, when it comes to this? Why is my plant showing the signs of this or that? And really, a lot of it comes down to soil. Can we grow a strong, healthy plant out of good, balanced, natural soil? And those sort of things kind of take care of themselves. Is usually kind of one of the most basic answers. We can do and come up with strategies in the moment to kind of deal with or help handle and keep a plant alive, or do certain things dealing with those sort of issues. But initially, when it comes down to everything, we might, not everything, but most things that we might deal with down the road, really all start right back at the very beginning, and how we're managing and setting up our soil for the growing year.
Yes, and what most people don't realize is, when you're talking about building your soil with the microorganisms, they're there already. I see in chats all the time, I see on YouTube videos all the time of people suggesting to bring in mycorrhizal fungi and stuff like that. And it's like, it's there already, it's just dormant. You need to add organic matter, you need to add build compost with the organic with the microorganisms in it,
in order to encourage those populations.
They'll wake up, and then once that organic matter that you put in there is depleted, roots in the ground, if you can, year round. So some regions can't have roots in ground year round, but in our area we can, and those roots become organic matter for those microorganisms, and they'll stay awake year round and do their functions that they need to.
Yeah. I like to, at the end of the year, I cut my pepper plants off at the base. Just enough for a handle. You know what I mean? And then I leave them until next. And then I leave them until next spring, when I'm ready to start resetting my soil, and then I can pull them out. And most of the time, I'm just pulling out those structure roots that aren't going to be, but all them other water roots and all them other types of roots all get eaten up and are food for all those microorganisms throughout that season, and they're there. So that's one of the good reasons to do. Because other than that, after I'm done with the peppers, I don't do much with those in that space until it comes next season, and I reset the soil for broccoli. And then I'll do broccoli. As soon as broccoli's done, I put in peppers. Peppers are done, and then I let the peppers sit, feed the soil. And then kind of start it, and then we kind of start over. That's kind of what I do with the pepper wicking containers that I use. Is the same sort of thing too, because there's also too a lot of people don't understand too is that building soil is something. It's not as easy with containers, but it still can be done over a couple of years process. And I don't change out the soil in my 5-gallon or bigger size containers. I just do a no dig method. I just top off with new compost every year. And I leave roots in there, like I say, and I do all that stuff because I want to. I've got living worms that live inside of my, inside of my containers in those systems. That I don't know how and where they just must have come in an egg somewhere because of the soil I put in at the beginning of the season. But I try to build soil life within even my containers, which can be done. Now we're resetting things a little bit when we reset and we rebuild and restart new containers, and that sort of thing. And we're kind of rebuilding a little bit, but you can build that up, get good things going in a season. And then I always find my peppers do best the second season in that same container, better than they did that first season.
Yes.
So it can, even building soil in containers is still something that, we're looking to do as well.
And especially with the Wiccan buckets that you use. I've used them previously before we moved to this property quite a bit. And I was amazed at what I could grow in them.
Yeah, I would be really, really interested in seeing what you would find as far as soil life, because I'm not much of a microscope type of person, but we did something, where what you could see as far as soil life of that soil that's right down there at the root base of my wicking buckets. You know what I mean? I would love to be able to look at that too and see that. Being towards the end of the season, maybe it's a little nutrient depletion, but I'd imagine there's gonna be a lot of life though.
Oh, I would almost guarantee it.
Yeah, I'd hope so. As much as I talk it up anyways, but I'm almost certain, because I'm almost certain that these sort of systems and these ideas of gardening are the best ways to go. Almost assured of that because of, I just showed yesterday at the beginning of the show, because I do the little clip from outside in the garden at the beginning of the show. And I showed everybody kind of a real quick look at some of the container peppers that are on the back patio, and they're looking great. Maybe not producing as many peppers as I'd like, but that's because of the heat. But the plants themselves are looking amazing and looking great. And they did not get off to a great start. And anybody who's been following the channel knows this too, because I did a whole video on how I scorched them during their hardening off phase. And man, they came back to life. They're doing great. And I can only accredit to the fact that we're utilizing a natural system. And the only thing I feed these things was the new compost that I do from the sifted compost I take from the alleyway compost, and some of our recycled soil that I mix together, top off all of my containers beginning of the season. That's all I do for them. Same thing with the regular in-ground beds too. We just kind of top them off with this compost mixture, and then for the rest of the year, and I haven't done many videos on it yet though too, and I want to, and I'm working on it. Believe me, I'm so busy right now, but I want to get it done. Is really this is the masterpiece of this basic system are worms and vermicomposting, because that's all I'm doing for my compost tea. I'm not even utilizing my compost for my compost tea. I'm just using straight vermicompost tea. That's all I'm doing. That's all only food my plants are getting. And that's what I credit the plants for looking so great.
Yes, and that's the amazing thing with the worms is that their whole entire digestive system has beneficial fungi in them, beneficial bacteria. And when they're excreting that's what your castings are. So you're just adding all that beneficial stuff.
Yeah. Here's a good piece of advice from Rick. Never leave a garden bed naked. Grow something or a cover crop or, yeah, exactly.
So true.
There's some where I don't do some of it, like I got really intensive, like some of my lettuce and stuff and things like that. But they create some of that soil shade themselves and stuff. And I've got it so intensive, it's hard to get kind of a mulch up and in around them and all of that. But I still try with the leaves. I'll tuck them in as best I can. But for the most part, they create and fill up the whole bed themselves, that I don't have to worry about much of a mulch during those parts of the season and stuff like that. So I don't have too much of that going there. But for the most part, I've learned that. And I collect leaves now too. I collect leaves from my neighbors and I bring in those bags people leave out front so I can mulch them down to make sure I've got enough to keep me going throughout the season, to constantly keep my soil covered and utilizing those leaves to break down, because that's really nature's food for the soil.
Yes, for sure.
That's nature's food for the soil. It's all those leaves falling at the end of fall. Yeah, nature knows what it's doing. All those leaves fall. And kind of like Rick's kind of talking about there too, with protecting the soil, is that's what nature's doing, is protecting the soil for winter, tuck it in the bed. Winter time's going to be a real harsh time for it. And then, by the time spring comes, the soil's going to eat up. I mean, I put like 4 or 5 inches of this just mulched up leaves, 4 or 5 inches on my garden beds. By next spring, when I'm ready to start planting or doing anything, it's gone. It's soil level and it's all gone almost. And now this is where we kind of do now. We have to kind of do some work for nature, because we're working outside of nature, right? And we want to gather and have extra leaves, because now we want to plant our stuff in and mulch up again with those leaves and everything too, to get it through the summer season and trap that moisture. And
yes, definitely,
to keep those worms and things alive and that soil biology balance, because that's really what we're trying to do when we're trying to keep our soil from not drying out, right?
Yes, and all that mulch is also helping prevent compaction also.
Yep.
So that's another major benefit of it.
Yeah.
When it rains, it's going to compact your soil if it's not covered for something for it to bounce off of.
Exactly. See, I mean, it's just, and and helps create that just fluffy sponge. All of that organic material too is really also that water retention as well.
Yes.
As it's breaking down, it breaks down and it's getting moved down into the soil as it works its way down. And in that layer of topsoil that it's still called topsoil, right? In that top layer, right?
Yes. So at least that's what I call it, is topsoil.
Yeah. Topsoil is not dead soil, as a lot of people would think, you know what I mean, in the natural sense. And it's where a lot of that broken down organic material is kind of getting really small and working its way down in there. But that's where we see that good moisture retention, right there at the top, on the topsoil, with good, well-balanced organic material, compost material in our soil, is that sponge. Yes, that's helping us retain that water.
And then it also allows the plants and roots to pull that water down as they're needing it.
Yeah. See, question here from Jay. Did you like that? How about that conversation with Jay a couple weeks ago? Wasn't that awesome?
Pretty amazing. I'm still kind of great to say A at all, but that's what us Americans think of when we, speak to Canadians.
That's right.
But yes, it was a great topic.
Yeah. So Jay asks, Adam, what one single piece of advice would you give to someone wanting to start improving their soil health? Yeah, maybe someone's just kind of catching on to this idea. What would you say would be a good way to get we're talking about wanting to get started. So we're getting started. What would you start with if you were to had the knowledge you have, but you're a new gardener and you're just getting going?
My advice would be to delve into making your own compost from local organic matter. Whether you're doing hot composting or static, the cold composting, and it takes you 6 months to a year with the cold composting to get decent broken down material, but start composting.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be much, but the local organic matter is what's going to be key to building your soil structure.
Yeah. Yeah. Always, like, even for myself, as I first started, and this was really key when I was first starting to listen to some of Elaine's first lectures. And if anybody hasn't checked out Dr. Elaine Ingham too, and I am literally hoping to get her on the show sometime. I mean, it just would be a super special guest to have eventually. But I literally watched so much of her lectures and thinking about stuff and started getting my mind wrapped around this idea. And I would completely agree with you too on the idea of, and for me, all I do is static cold composting. I haven't been able to set up or get myself geared into a good hot composting system yet. It is a goal of mine because I want to do that. I really do. But I have a good kind of static cold alleyway composting system that has been working really well for me over the years, and adds just enough what I need for creating and everything we just kind of talked about, as what I was saying about creating compost and topping everything off is all I really do for my container gardens. And other than starting new containers, which we're starting from fresh at that point, but it's full of all of that same compost, that same sort of stuff. It's just got to build and break down to get itself where it needs to be. But I agree, setting up and getting into composting and figuring out how to do that, even if you got to do a home little roller thing, if you can get a little home system to do that, anything to just kind of get yourself into it, to learn more about it, to get into the process of doing it. And then eventually you're going to find that system, those things that work really good for you. And then what you're on that real great process of creating a great regenerative type gardening system. And that idea of what you're saying, that regenerative idea of utilizing as much local stuff, local organic material, like all these local trees that are dropping all these leaves around my neighborhood. I'm wanting to pull them in and gather them in to have those kind of local things into there. But also, like, we're breaking down parts of some of these bushes and some of these other things too. So I got a little wood chipper, so I'm chipping them down. So, you know what I mean? So that I'm turning those local things that I'm pulling from things and not letting it escape the area. I wanted to reuse it and become organic material right in the space that it is, so it's not having to go very far. And so, like, a lot of the wood chips and stuff that I have that I use around in all the different garden beds are all wood chips that have been chipped from either trees and branches and things that were right here in the area. So I just developed that mindset, and it could be, you could reach out and bring organic material from almost anywhere and everywhere, which is fine. Organic material is great in any form and shape that it comes from, but it's always best to get it from as close to home as possible.
Yes. So that way you know that what you're putting into your soil is native or microbiology, and they're going to be able to survive in your soil.
Or maybe something that hasn't possibly been sprayed previously or something like that as well too. Because we're definitely trying to avoid as much chemicals in there as we possibly can. One thing I do say though too, and I will kind of say this as we talk about, as I mentioned, that with sprays, and I do like to also mention to newer gardeners or newer people who are into maybe a process like this, say you did come up with something and you're worried that possibly some sort of spray might have been in maybe some branches you would chip down or something that may have gotten in there. I wouldn't fret to the point that it's going to damage fruit or it's going to damage soil too much. There are certain things that are really bad, and some things that are like this gray zone stuff that's been getting around and stuff. There are certain things, but for the most part, again, this is why we're talking about balanced soil and all of that. Is that they're going to find a way to attack whatever these sort of things and these little nematodes and little microorganisms and fungi. Also, another big one that's is escaping my mind are enzymes. Enzymes are a huge part in a player in this sort of thing. this part of this thing that goes on is if these things, things get in there, whether it's a chemical or some sort of thing like that. Enzymes work really well to start breaking that stuff down and making it inert, in a sense of its idea of what kind of damage it can do. Yeah, it's going to create some problems. It's going to create a little bits of imbalance because, those things will kill off some stuff. But what'll end up happening is that soil is going to immediately go back into a rebalance and kind of thing. So that's what I try to tell new gardeners. Don't worry too much. Exactly. Say your neighbor did spray near, or something might have come over from something, that sort of thing. Don't worry too much about what it's going to do to your soil, that sort of stuff. If you're worried about fruit and you possibly don't want to do that on maybe some drift, maybe, I always just say just really good washing. Make sure you're extra washing. But for the most part, if it don't do the fruit then, but don't worry too much about your soil. Your soil will, unless you're just drenching it. And if you're doing it and that's just your practice, then you're really, really just messing and unbalancing your soil. Yeah. And it's going to be too hard for it to kind of come back from that sort of stuff. But if it's something that just might have gotten in there, your soil is going to take care of that. I'm pretty sure of that. And
and that's another benefit of amending in the autumn is if you are worried about the herbicides or pesticides, if you're applying it in the fall, the half-life of most herbicides are roughly anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And by the time you're ready to sow in the spring, it's not going to be a worry if it was in there and you still have all that organic matter.
Yeah. Right on. Let's see here. Actually, looks like your wife's in the chat.
Oh,
hey, yep. hey.
Probably remembered.
All right, right on.
I'm trying to get into the office a couple times. I got the door locked so that way they can't barge in.
Right on. Oh, and we got Robert over at Steam Puzzle saying hello, all my friends. Hey, Robert, why don't you jump on here towards the end of the show? That would be a good idea. Put the link in for everybody. I'll put it right here. Actually, you know what? That's a good idea. Let's do it again. One more time. We got a lot of people who are a little shy today, Adam. I'm really glad you weren't. It is kind of a risk to kind of throw it out there. I was like, well, maybe I'll be out here by myself. But no, thanks for jumping in. But again, like I said, we're a nice small community here. I think with almost everybody don't have to worry about anything, and it's just kind of a fun opportunity to put your face forward, you know what I mean? And out there, we get to be in the chat with each other every week, but getting to see each other and all that sort of stuff is good. I'm still hoping I'm going to talk Rob into it sometime from Rob's Allotment Gardening. I'm telling you, he's such a fun guy. I love his videos, and I try to jump in and check out all his stuff all the time. He's just a great person and great personality to sit back and watch relaxing gardening content with is just awesome. So let's see here. LP's like, it's been a great chat and a discussion. Yeah, it is. We're talking some soil science and all that sort of stuff, man. This is good stuff. It's where it's at right here.
Yes, definitely. Especially the longer that you've been gardening, the more you kind of get into it, I found, for most gardeners.
Rob says, I will join you one night, I promise.
That's what you said last time, Rob.
I know, we're giving you a hard time. It's either that or Rob's just going to have to volunteer to come for one of our Are You Following Me segments, because that I think that'll be fun. We got to talk to him sometime. We definitely got to talk to him sometime. He's such a great supporter of our channel, so definitely. And then I put the link in there for you, Robert. So I want to see you jump in there. I'd like to talk to you as we end our show here in just a few minutes, actually, because we are about that time. So jump on, Robert. I want to talk about something real quick. But anyways, again, thanks, Adam, for taking the time and volunteering and and getting on here and putting a face forward with the name. So now everybody here who has watched or watches our show on a regular basis and sees our moderator and facilitator Jay Dixon, moderator Adam Burleigh in the mall cops, as we call them, in our chat box there too. You've got faces now to put to these great folks who spend their time coming on and joining with us during the live streams and helping take care of things. There ain't much mall copping to do around here, but it's great to it's great to have some folks here keeping an eye on some things pop up every now and then. But we're so lucky over in our corner of the internet. But and let's see, what was Jay saying is Rob is in the wrong part of his house to be a guest right now. Yeah, I know. I think that's what he said last week too. We're just giving Rob a hard time. It's perfectly fine. We're gonna get him on the show eventually. And Rob, okay, this is a good admission too. Here, it is like, and a few beers in me too. So I suppose if you're a little in the wind right now, then maybe you might not want to be chatting or whatever. But we'll get Rob on the show coming up. I'll talk him into it for sure.
And it is in the evening over there, so I'm sure he's been out in his allotment and doing some stuff today or what have not. And
for sure,
relaxing.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Because that was another thing we don't think about. We got such a great international audience. For us, when we're so locals, I mean, like right now, we could literally go and have a cup of coffee together right after this.
Yes,
you know what I mean? And that's literally how we could do this. But for the rest of everybody else here, I mean, it's such a great worldwide international audience. Jay's from Canada, Rob's up in the UK, Rick is all the way down under in Australia. You know what I mean? We're all over the globe right now. And, it's just kind of great. And we don't think about sometimes about there's big time differences. More so for Rob, because Rob's way in the evening time. I'm not sure. It's got to be like 9-10 o'clock in the evening time for him by now. And for Rick, though, he's got to be about 5-6 a.m. in the morning, 5-6 in the morning. So really early in the morning. Yeah.
Well, that's an amazing thing about your channel too. Is in the chats, you can I mean, it's almost like you get to know everybody that shows up every weekend, and you kind of pick up on stuff, and where they live at and stuff like that. So we're all kind of getting to know each other a little bit.
Exactly.
So it makes it kind of nice in that aspect.
And that's really what I cherish the most and really been working and wanting to build the most out of doing this show is that sort of deal. That's exactly why I put it up on at the top of the screen for this year's shows, was building community through gardening, because we've so far been able to just gather some really, really great people to be a part of this community in the urban gardener side of the whole gardening community. The whole gardening community is really great. I want more people from the whole gardening community to come find us in our little corner here in the urban gardener community, because we've got such a great thing going on here each and every weekend, and I'm really proud of it. It's the one thing I know of. There's things that when I get stressed about getting guests, or like I have been the last week or so, because it's been I took a couple of weeks off because I got a really great I need to work on that too. But I took some time off for my granddaughter and all of that, and so it's been kind of like a break. And when that happens, everything gets affected. My ability to get people booked and working the dates and all that sort of stuff. So we've kind of been that's why we've been having shows kind of like this in the middle of it. But my goal ultimately is to be here every weekend, though, so we can continue that conversation no matter what. Whether we got a guest or not, is to kind of continue sort of thing, In fact, you know what? This is what I'm going to have to do. What we're going to do this real quick. Let's see if I can. I'm going to... While you're here, Robert, where are you at? I know you were here a second ago. Okay, let's go ahead and start here. Let's pull that like that. Let's do 8% share screen. We're doing things on the fly for a minute, but I told everybody I would do this, and I was trying to and was working on a little bit earlier during the conversation, but kind of got off in the conversation. But I wanted to kind of grab a few pictures of the grandkid because everybody was asking for that earlier. So let's see here. I'm going to just do a shared screen. Let's see if we can't do
sure with her being just over a month old now, I bet she's grown quite a bit since.
I really I think so too, and mom, for sure, but she's still just a little newborn baby, and I'm like, hold on to this as long as possible.
Yes.
But yeah, it's hard to believe it's a little over a month now. So
but our parents told us the same thing, Enoch, don't blink. And we blinked. My daughter just got married a couple weeks ago, and just amazement that my baby is now grown up and moving out.
Yeah, no doubt. Exactly. Oh, I'm sorry. Rick is actually saying 4 to 6 a.m. That's when the show runs for him. So he's up 4 to 6 a.m. to watch us in Australia. How crazy. I love it, though. And it's so great to see everybody, see this whole community and all of that. And again, I want to thank you again, Adam, so much. I got to wind the show down here and all of that. But, it's been just such a pleasure to get to meet you for one earlier in the year. And then again, too, as I mentioned, we're going to get you back over here into the gardens, get you working some soil science with us, and hopefully get to do some videos as we get to doing that all there too. And I love it, dude. You got some good family representation going on here.
Awesome.
Allison says, that's my papa. I love it. That's great. Allison, I don't know, is that the one who got married?
Yes. Yep.
Congratulations, Allison. Congratulations to you, Adam. Congratulations to your whole family and all of that as well, too.
Thank you.
Yes, dude. And just like LB says, great show today, guys. Adam has been a great guest. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, LP.
Oh, and we got Tyler here too as well.
That's my boy.
Love it. Great family representation. All right. Awesome. Great to have you here, Adam. Thanks again for joining with us. I'm going to go ahead and let you go today, but thanks for all the work you do and everything here for the show and all of that as well, too. And it's great to have you here every weekend and put a face to the name in the chat. And we'll see you again real soon.
Alrighty. Sounds good. Thank you, Enoch.
Thank you, Adam. Thanks very much. Right on. How awesome is that? Again, too, you all a little shy out there, though. I was really hoping to get us somebody else here in the chat to talk with us here. But, thankfully we had Adam with us and had a lot of great things to talk about. Just love, too, the ideas about soil science and all that sort of stuff. I mean, me and Adam could probably sit and talk about that sort of stuff all day long. It really is truly where our gardens and all of our plants and all of everything that we grow, food and everything we eat, whether we grow it or not, too, everything really comes from the soil, and taking care of the soil properly is the best thing we can do in stewarding the land and what we have in our gardening spaces and what we do in growing and all of that. So lots and lots of great things there with Adam. Thank you again for joining with us and taking part of this basic open house today. Even though Adam was the only volunteer, somehow, some way, we're going to talk some of you all into it sometime down the line if we ever kind of run into another Sunday like this, or maybe even a Saturday too, because I believe Jay was on a Saturday. But however it kind of works out, ultimately, it's great to have an opportunity to be able to talk to all of you. So maybe we'll get Rob, LP, Rick, somebody at some point in time down the road to get brave enough to join with us, but great to have Adam today. Now, moving on as we kind of wind down this show. Yes, and again, Jay says here too, thanks to the Burleigh clan for supporting Adam in our chat. Yeah, that's awesome, man. You love to see it. And every now and then that happens too with guests that we have on the show too, is their family will show up and give some big support as well too. And that is so awesome to see. Adam has a very loving and wonderful family supporting him and everything he does. And so awesome to have them here to jump into during the show. Okay. Now, we talked about this at the earlier, was talking about some pictures of the grandbaby, because I didn't load up any new ones, and I wasn't, it's such a process actually to get them loaded up here. I just figured, you know what, let's just do one of those shared screen things, and I'll take you through a couple of pictures that I shared on Facebook recently. Let's see here, starting with this one that oh wow, that's not too big either though. Let's see here. I don't know if we can do it and do this, share the screen in another way. Will it let me do that? It's not too much better, but anyways, we'll go ahead and go with that. And there's me with the grandbaby. And I think we've all seen this picture. I shared this one the other week. Let's see here. Where do we go? There we go. Now I'm back. Now I'm on. And there's me looking there with her. This was a newborn. So this was right after she was born. And there's her father, Kyle Green. His newborn baby, Layla. And there's my daughter. So these are all still like newborn. And then here she is just a few weeks later. Look at that beauty. Isn't she something? Oh my gosh. I could just sit here and hold her and look at that all day long. And then there's her looking. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Oh my gosh. It's totally amazing. Nobody says, ah. And breathe. Adorable. Precious. Oh, she's just so beautiful, so lovely. Let's see here. Another one. The 1 month picture. The 1 month picture. Oh, just great. Look at this one. Oh my gosh, I love this picture so much. I love this picture so much. She's wailing. She is wailing away right there. But man, oh man. There's just something about capturing that look though, right there, of her just totally letting it out. Is just something else. Just something else. I can't believe it. And then let's see here. Oh, look at the feet. Oh, she's good. Her hands and her feet are the cutest thing she has. Just the cutest. It's just so adorable. Yeah, right on. Yes, very happy parents for sure. Yeah, I love those little feet. Let's see here. What else we got? Oh, I think this is my second from the screaming photo to this one right here. Oh, just that expression. You can't have anything better than that. No, you can't have anything better than that. She's just so beautiful. So there you go. Got some new pictures of the grandbaby. I think I've shared that one already. Yep. There we go. Whoops. Let's do that. I don't know. There we go. But right on. There we are. Let's see. Okay. Well, anyways, I guess Robert must have just jumped in for a second or something, because I haven't seen him again. And he certainly isn't jumping in. I was hoping he might jump in for a second and maybe give us a minute or two to kind of do so. Because I just really also want to, really thank him and give him an opportunity to kind of shout out his channel, Steam Puzzle, and everything that they do over there and what he does for us in the channel, because he's been making these reels. I'm about to hopefully have some time maybe this afternoon and tomorrow to start releasing some more, and then hopefully start getting on a regular schedule that we're going to start working out as we get our schedules kind of lined up and get myself back to where I need to be, because that grandbaby has been taking a lot of my time. But we'll get that all lined up and good. We'll hopefully start having some good regular show clips and reels that'll go out there and hopefully help us bring some more people in to being a part of the show, because again, that's really something we want to do. Share about the show, share with all your friends, let everybody know. Just go out there and let some people know in some gardening groups that you know of. Say, hey man, I know this really awesome show on the weekends, and not only is it a great place to meet new gardeners that we get to meet through interviews and some of these big great channels and awesome people who join us and spend times, but we also have all these nice new small channels who we get to promote and introduce everybody to. So not only do they get to meet new gardeners through the conversations we have on the channel, but you get to meet new people through the community that we're building right here through this show and our chat and everything that we've got to see through today and last time when we got to interview Jay too, just to show you guys how awesome and wonderful our community is right here on the Urban Gardener community. So thank you so much for all of that. And Jean, thank you so much for taking your time for joining us here too. Says thanks for sharing your gardening journey and your beautiful family. Yeah. I love the opportunity to be able to do that. I mean, I'm certainly not going to make the Let's Get Growing show the Let's Get talking about Layla show, as much as I love to do that type of show for sure. But we are a gardening show, and we'll keep continuing to bring you all the great, awesome gardening conversations and content and all of that here on the show. So definitely. So again, here real quick, as we sign off here, we're going on and on and on today. It's kind of what happens when we do these kind of loose kind of conversation shows too, is we really kind of get caught up in all the different conversations and the different things going on and end up having some really long shows. So we'll kind of start getting ready to cut this one down. So if you can, click that like button, thumbs up button if you haven't yet already, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. And like I just mentioned, go share with all your friends, get the word out there. I need you guys. You guys are my biggest help when it comes down to it, to get the word out there and all of that. As well as too, I'll just mention here, we didn't really, we had Adam, we had all of that too, as well too. It's great to go and support people who are guests of ours here as well, by going and checking out their social media, liking their content, posts, and even better is to go and leave some comments and say that you saw them here on the Let's Get Growing show. That's always a really great thing to do as well too. I didn't do this earlier in the show as well, but if you are hanging on here all the way to the end and you have been watching on the replay, thank you so much. And a big, huge shout out to you for hanging on all the way to the end of the show, more so, I suppose. But to hanging on there with us and watching the show and taking part of what we got going on here at Let's Get Growing on our replay. Definitely get into the comments and let me know you are here, and let me know what you got growing on, any suggestions or anything else as well too. And in the description too as well, we have a link to our Facebook group, the Let's Get Growing group. And there you can come join with the rest of the community as well and share some pictures and things from your garden. And I'd love to see what you've got growing on. So come join with us over there. Love to see you there too. And you can find that link in the description. You can find links to all sorts of stuff that we've got in the description below. And all of that sort of stuff. We got lots of stuff going on. I've got I do, here so many things too as we're kind of winding down. But I do just want to quickly do mention next Sunday edition of the show is the second Sunday of the month, and on the second Sunday of the month we do have our good friend Scott Wilson, Master Gardener Scott Wilson from the Gardener Scott channel, will be joining with us for the second Sunday of the month. Each month, he joins with us to answer all of your garden questions and all of that. And also, I like to also let everybody know every Sunday too is he does his live streams on Monday mornings. So tomorrow morning. So if you want to continue to watch some fun gardening content and all of that as well too, go and join Gardener Scott's channel at the Gardener Scott channel tomorrow morning for his live stream. I believe it's like 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time. I think they have the time right. I'm sure Jay has put a post in the comments to talk about that as well too. But yeah, Gardener Scott tomorrow. And then also check out yesterday's show. We had a great conversation with my good friend Kay Cottrell over at Late Bloomer, the Late Bloomer channel. Kay is one of my favorite people, just someone I've been doing gardening content since the very beginning that I started doing content and sharing gardening on YouTube. Kay was one of those very first people I got to know, got to meet and visit her gardens and do videos and live streams with too. So it was great to catch up with her, as well as Desiree Lindsley from Gardening with Des. She was our Are You Following Me guest yesterday for the show, and she was so fun. I got to meet her and last week's Are You Following Me guest, Josh, the plant techie on the Texas Garden Guys channel. He does the Garden Party podcast on Thursday evenings, which is another great place to go watch a gardening live stream and hear and continue fun gardening conversations and all of that in the gardening community. But both of them, Josh and Desiree, were guests with me on the Garden Party podcast a few weeks back. So it was great to bring them both on in the last couple of weeks for our Are You Following Me segment and to get to meet them. And also next week's show, which I got to continue even further. I'm only going on the fact that he said, yeah, hey, yes. And I got that message from him earlier, but next Saturday's show is going to be another great return guest and another one of my favorite people in Greg Peterson from the Urban Farm. Greg Peterson has been a guest a couple of times on our show last season, so he'll be a return guest again. This will be his third time on the Let's Get Growing show, so he'll be our first third timer, I think, that we've had on the show, other than a couple of like more regular guests, but as far as guests that we have. So it'd be great to talk with Greg next Saturday on the show, so you'll definitely want to check out that as well. I've been also on Greg's Urban Farm podcast. He's got a really popular, cool podcast. You'll want to check that out as well too. I've been on that podcast a few different times as well too. So it's gonna be great to catch up with Greg as well next week on the show too. So we got Greg Peterson on Saturday, Scott Wilson on Sunday for the show next week. So I hope that you all come and join with me then. And until then, I hope that you all have a great gardening week. And I'll see you next weekend.